this time of year, poison ivy is a big thing that we're going to be seeing. And I just want to point out some things to understand about poison ivy versus treating a herpes sore versus something else. So with poison ivy is an oil that gets on the skin irritates, the skin puts a bubble over it to protect it, and that's why you get those. You break it, that oil dribbles in a line or wherever you scratched it to, and then your skin builds more bridges over it that you keep ripping, okay? And it's important to understand that mechanism because anything that treats poison ivy that is oil-based is actually going to irritate it because it's not going to dry out that oil. So it's oil plus oil, right? So a good treatment for poison ivy would either be water or alcohol-based because alcohol would dry out the oil. So if you were to take Bing Pian and grind it because that's going to cool it down and get rid of the itch, you add some Peng Sha because that's going to help heal the skin, and then calamine, that mineral is also a Chinese medicine herb, so calamine is great. But if you take a calamine lotion that you buy that isn't full of other products these days, it's hard not to get it like that, and you were to mix in some Bing Pian and some Peng Sha, you could use some Liu Huang, all the very drying minerals that you would use are very good. Personally, grind it up in an alcohol, high concentrated alcohol, shake, dab it on, is very effective. Why I want to make sure you understand that idea of an alcohol dries out oil is that a simplex outbreak or other types of issues are the opposite, that they are irritated and they need an oil base. So you would use Bing Pian and Peng Sha and whatever you're going to use, but it would be in an oil because the oil smothers or puts out concentration of air. So something that likes fire likes air. So the more air exposure it has, the meaner it gets. And a lot of the canker sores, cold sores, herpes sores are like that, which is why a Vaseline or a lysine in a blocking surface, an oil, a thick substance, is very effective. It covers the sore does not get air, and therefore it gets put out, its fire gets put out. But that strategy, same herbs to treat a sore versus poison ivy, you need an alcohol base. Then when you look at a skin rash like eczema or psoriasis, it's good to test it and get a castor oil in a small patch and find out whether your skin issue is damp, heat, or heat, damp. If it's damp heat and you cover it with oil, it doesn't breathe, it doesn't dry, and the damp gets worse and their spot gets worse. Now you know it's a damp focused. If you put on the castor oil and it gets better, then you know it's a heat focused. So really start training not which herbs treat what, but my delivery mechanism is so important that if we can just grasp that, do I need to smother the fire because it likes air and gets worse or meaner with air? Or do I need to give it air and dryness because it gets worse when smothered with oil and moisture? Okay? So as today you look at a poison ivy case or going forward, just stop and say, wait a minute. The herbs ground up are going to be almost identical for all of these treatments, these topical issues. It's my vehicle, and the common vehicles were oil, vegetable oil, zhuliu, lard, animal skin with fat on the inside because it wouldn't breathe, or alcohol drying, or vinegar. Vinegar, very, very common. You don't see much of that anymore, but a lot of topicals were mixed in with vinegar to go in and to dry and change that and get rid of that damp. So think less about herbs and more about how am I delivering the herbs directly to the area and how am I going to test it, drying versus moistening in the process. If you have a nice open sore, you can also put the powder on directly and cover it. So think about not the right herbs to use, but the right mechanism to recognize whether you are moistening and covering to stop air from touching it, or actually trying to dry and get air into it to get rid of the oil or the dampness.